In this edition of Endzone Insights, we'll be looking at the recent dropping of the AP Top 25 poll and discussing some initial reactions that I had towards the list, all on Endzone Insights. Welcome back into Endzone Insights, where you can get the best takes from the next generation of football fans. I am your host, Darius Fitzpatrick, and sorry this is coming out a little bit late. I didn't have enough time to come with it on the initial day of release, but I really did want to talk about it with you guys and just discuss the recent AP Top 25 poll that came out for college football. And honestly, when looking at it, there wasn't a lot of things that I felt were wrong with this poll. That being said, I don't think anything is perfect. Nothing in this world is perfect, and neither is this list. To show that, I want to start off with number one, Ohio State. And honestly, it's not the fact that they are number one. I would have had Oregon be number one personally if it was up to me, but I completely see why some people see Ohio State being number one. That's not the reason that I feel this way, but is how many people thought they should be number one. Because according to ESPN, Ohio State got the most votes with 40 people voting them number one. Now, the team with the second most votes only got 14. Now, I don't think that Ohio State has done enough this offseason to the point where they are this obvious title favorites. Yes, they have one of the best rosters in college football. I'm not denying that, but they lost significant pieces on the defensive side of the ball in the NFL draft. I do trust Ryan Day to the point where I believe that the defense will still be one of the best in college football next year. However, to see them get as many votes as they did at number one was kind of a shock to me. I don't really see Ohio State as being this obvious title favorite that the voters seem to think they are. Again, I just want to reiterate, it's not the fact that Ohio State is number one that bothers me. It's the fact that they were the overwhelming number one here. Second, and this is the worst part of the list in my opinion, it is Texas being ranked above Indiana. I just don't get it. What else do the voters want Indiana to do? They had an undefeated season last year. They had the Heisman Trophy winner. They won the national championship game. They've done everything that someone could have asked them to do, and they're still being doubted. I've heard some people saying that is because they have a new QB at the helm after Fernando Mendoza left for the NFL. Correct me if I am wrong, but didn't Indiana make the college football playoffs in 2024 without Fernando Mendoza? Yes, they did. Now, if they were putting a true freshman as the starter for the team, I would understand there being some questions. But they are playing a QB in Josh Hoover, who's an experienced QB from TCU, and put many of the pressures of that program on his back. Now he's getting a better roster in around him and a better coaching staff with him. There's no way I don't see him being a better QB this season, which makes me wonder, what do the voters not trust about this team that they can't even fathom being in the top five? Because I just don't understand. It feels like a double standard to me, to be honest, and I will get into that more later because I want to continue that. But first, I mentioned that I felt Texas is too high on this list, and I still believe in that. Now, you may be thinking that I just hate Texas at this point. I don't. I have really high expectations for this team this season. I expect them to make the college football playoffs this season and to win a playoff game. That's the expectation I have for the Longhorns team, and if they don't do that this season, then I consider this year nothing but a failure. But when I hear people saying that this is the best roster in college football, I just think to myself, well, they have the potential to be the best roster in college football. People have already been crowning this Texas roster when we haven't seen them play a full game yet with one another. There have been so many things that have changed with this roster, and they haven't proven that they all work well together with one another. The players do look good individually, but do they all work well together under the same scheme? If it was only a few players they were bringing in to replace some starters, I would be excited and not worried. But it is not. It is almost half of the starting roster at this point. And I just don't know if I can claim a team as being top five when the team in totality just doesn't have the experience with one another. Now the players they brought in do have the potential and the talent to be in the poll and in the top end of it. But I feel that there's just way too many hypotheticals to be putting them at number 5. They could be deserving of this ranking as the season goes along, but this high in the rankings before the season even begins is crazy to me, especially when you consider the fact they didn't even make the playoffs last year. It's just insane to me, to be honest. Because right now, I see a team like Indiana, which was able to win the Natty last year and keep many players on the roster that we know work well together, somehow be below Texas, which has not proven anything as of yet to me. It just doesn't make sense to me. And I just need to see it to believe that Texas is actually a top 5 team in college football because we're playing the hypothetical game with this Texas team so much that we are putting them over teams that have actually proven, vetted rosters that we know work well with one another. And this just goes back to the thing I was talking about before with double standards. Because of the fact that Indiana was once one of the worst teams in college football, it feels that is the only thing people still think about. Not what they are now. So no matter what they do, people just won't give them the respect that they deserve. Because they will always think of the one win Indiana squads back in the day. Whereas we have a team such as Texas that has a much richer history of winning than Indiana. And because people are so focused on the past, that is the only thing that crosses their mind. Not what they have done recently, but how they looked back then. So they give them the benefit of the doubt, and sometimes it is warranted, and sometimes it is absolutely not. And I feel like this is another case of that. That is the only reason why I could see someone think that Texas should be higher than Indiana right now. But besides that, the last thing I would say is that I feel that Miami should be higher on this list. Similar to Indiana, I just feel that they are being disrespected. They made the Natty last year, and you could argue that they have only improved this offseason with the addition of Darian Mensah at the quarterback position and former Duke receiver Cooper Barricade to tag along Makai Lemon. Malachi Tony, shoot, for some I was thinking of the Eagles for a second, but sorry, Malachi Tony. Now, I do not believe they should be the number 1 team because of the losses that they had on the defensive line and the offensive line. But come on, at some point you just need to trust that Mario Cristobal is going to produce quality linemen. They may not be as good as Ruben Bain and Francis Noah, but they should be a solid line next year against some weak teams in the ACC. So I would put them in the top 5 along with Indiana, not top 3 because of the losses they had on the line. But I feel that after what we saw from them in the playoffs and what they brought in this offseason, it should warrant at least a top 5 appearance. After those things, though, I really don't see much wrong with this list. I like the fact that Alabama is at 13. I feel like with all the questions that this team has, it's good to place them outside the top 10. I've heard some people argue that Ole Miss should be higher, but I feel that it makes sense considering the fact that they have all these coaching questions after they lost so many pieces to Lane Kiffin in his LSU departure. The only other thing I would say is I feel like Michigan and Washington should be switched, but other than that, I feel like the list is pretty solid. Well, that is going to wrap up this episode of Endzone Insights. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please send it to someone you know. If you feel any differently about anything I said, please put it in the comment section. When we come back, we will be discussing more NFL record predictions in the AFC South and NFC South. But until then, be safe, be happy, and live your best life.